morning because we've got a really, really, really interesting subject and one that's really dear to my heart. We're going to talk about bullying today and also what parents can do to prevent it. So today's guest is Joe Wojcik, who developed the Say No to Bullying Today program. Hi, Joe.
Good morning, Africa.
Thank you so much for being on with me today.
My pleasure.
So let's get right to it. Simple explanation. Tell us what bullying is exactly. Can you explain that?
Yes, well, and that's a good question, Africa, because oftentimes, even in the schools, there's confusion about what bullying is. And bullying may not necessarily be like name calling or someone calling someone a name. Bullying is when an individual tries to take control, intimidate, humiliate another individual. So it's an ongoing type of a event that takes place. So basically, bullying is more about taunting, tormenting, something that has a negative impact on the person who is targeted.
Yeah, and I know we talk a lot specifically now about kids being bullied, but I mean, you can be an adult and be bullied as well.
Absolutely. Spousal bullying, there's all types. Elderly get bullied, individuals get bullied all the time. It's part of our culture, by the way. It's something that we cannot really eliminate. The best we can do is give students tools and help parents bully-proof their children so they know how to cope with it when they are exposed to it.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people, I was actually having this discussion with my coworkers earlier in the week, and I told them about the topic and what I wanted to discuss, and, you know, I was bullied as a little girl, and I still remember the bully. I remember the girl. Her name was Tanya, and she tormented me to no end. And, you know, they also agreed. They were bullied as well. But what they say is that they feel like people are a little more sensitive more now than back then. So in other words, they're feeling like, oh, you know, these kids just got to toughen up. It's kind of just part of the game. What do you say to that, Joe?
Well, many times people believe that bullying is a rite of passage, just like you said, Africa, that, you know, you get exposed to it, you got to put the stiff upper lip and walk away from it. Well, research has given us this information. It consistently has proven that bullying, even back in our days, because I was bullied when I was a child, can have an extremely negative impact on a child's development. So there are those children that can walk away from it, maybe laugh it off and don't let it bother them. But that said, there are others, like myself included, that internalize that bullying, and it leads to lowering self-esteem and self-confidence in that individual as they develop. And also research has indicated children that are bullied eventually become adults, and many of them also struggle with substance abuse and domestic violence and low self-esteem even as an adult, bearing the scars of that bullying event in their childhood. So I think we know more about the impact of bullying has on an individual today than we did way back when. I'm 60 years old, so that's many years ago that I was called Yubbie, that it had an impact on me even back then.
Wait, what were you called?
Yubbie, Y-U-B-B-I-E.
Why?
Well, I was overweight. And there was a song out way back when called Yummy, 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 I Got Love in My Tummy. And it just so happened that summer at a camp, students listening to that song, all of a sudden, because I was heavy, said, you know, your new name is Yubbie. And that's how they started to call me. But it wasn't just the name calling, because even though I am sensitive to name calling, today it doesn't bother me. But back then I was. It was more the abusive things that other students did to me, the humiliation that I was exposed to that left permanent scars, by the way. I still, even when I'm in front of a high school audience or junior high, when I talk about what happened to me, tears come to my eyes. These are permanent scars that last with us forever. Like you said, you remember the individual, you remember what happened, and amazingly enough, I go to schools where teachers come up to me and tell me they can't even go to their high school reunion because they don't know what they would do if they were to face that individual that had picked on them in high school.
Yeah, so how has you being bullied affected you now as an adult? Like, did you struggle with low self-esteem for a while? How did that?
Yes, I absolutely did. Matter of fact, when I lost all my weight in high school, I eventually became pretty fit. And I became a bully, and it led me into substance abuse. I was a very violent individual for a long period of time. And as I write in my first book, Yubbie, The Fall and Rise of an Everyday Joe, it wasn't until I was in a serious automobile accident in my 30s, and it took me 17 years to recover from, that I come to the realization that what had happened to me as a child had actually defined my behavior for so many years of my life. And I was able then to be able to understand that I needed to change my way of life, because I would not let bullying have a long-term effect on me any longer.
That's interesting that you said that as a child you were bullied, and then you turned around and became a bully yourself.
I was angry. I was absolutely angry, as so many times when I meet an adult that was bullied as a child. You know, you can either be one of two things. You can either continue to be a victim and be targeted even as an adult, or two, maybe turn around and become a bully. It's really about venting that anger. And I'm on so many blogs and different groups of adults that were bullied, and it's unbelievable how many adults live with low self-esteem, low self-confidence their entire life, mainly because of those scars from their childhood. That's why it's so important, and that's why it's my mission in life to help parents and to help students, because I know parents worry about what's happening to their children at school. I know they don't know how to approach the subject with their children, because it wasn't approached by my parents with me. And most importantly, I even give them advice on how to approach the schools so they can resolve the issue, so we can nip it in the bud, so there are no long-term scars.
Right, and a lot of people feel like, I know a lot of parents might feel like this, like, hey, you know, if somebody's bothering you, then you bother them back. But that's not always the best way to handle that situation.
Violence, never.
It's never right. So Joe, let's talk about the difference between bullying and maybe just normal conflict between your peers.
Well,
there's a difference.
There is a difference, and what happens is it's kind of a developmental thing. Certain things start occurring at certain school years. So children, and I do presentations from kindergarten all the way up through high schools using the unique persona called Joe the Biker. This rough, tough facade guy who's got tattoos comes in there, does rap music, and I get the students' attention. That said, my message changes to the various age groups, because developmentally things change. So with kids that are in kindergarten to third grade, they're testing. Name calling may be taking place, and we really have to help them be able to walk away from that. When they start getting into the fourth and sixth grade, they start getting a little bit meaner, and they begin to target people. And it's mainly because a bully, and I have great empathy for the bully, a bully has something happening in their life, most likely at home, but not necessarily, that causes them to come to school and to target somebody else. And many times it's to bolster their own lack of self-esteem and self-confidence.
Oh yeah, for sure. So can you talk about some of I'm trying to think of how the behaviors I had when I was being bullied. Can you speak to the parents about, like, how do you know if your child is being bullied? Like, what are some behaviors you should probably look out for? Can you speak to that?
Africa, that's an excellent question. Matter of fact, I'm going to give you a couple of them. One of them is a child, you know, the obvious one where a child comes home and they got bruises, cuts, something's been taken from them, something that's very obvious. That could be a sign that their child is being bullied when they can't come up with adequate answers. Another sign would be maybe they're withdrawing, or maybe as 160,000 students a year do not go to school because they're afraid of what happens, maybe they start coming up with illnesses, speaking to problems that they have why they can't go to school. Maybe they take a different way home from school every day. So there are a lot of things that are subtle that parents have to be aware of. I offer parents in my free guide to parents on bullying on my website with tons of information and a number of different items that will tell them signs if their child is being bullied.
Okay. So let me ask you this, Joe. What if your kid comes home and says, you know what, Mom, like, I really didn't even want to tell you this, but yeah, you know, I'm being bullied, but I don't want you to do anything. In other words, I don't want you to go to the teachers. I don't want you to go to the parent. Like, what is the parent supposed to do with that?
A parent has to turn to their responsibility. And that responsibility is to keep that child safe in their school. So they have to sit down, and I believe parents should have this conversation even before a child goes to school. They have to bully-proof their child. If this happens to you, I want you to come home and tell me. But as a parent, it's my responsibility to protect you and keep you safe at school. So what we have to do is we do have to take some steps to make sure that nothing more happens to you. So, you know, parents can't be their friends. A parent has to be that responsible role in a child's life. And it's because of that communication they have with their children that gives them the ability to say, now, give me some facts, and that's what I suggest. Have a child start keeping a journal, writing down when it happened, what date it happened, who was around, what adults were around, and keeping a log. Because if this progresses, you know, so if it's a one-time incident, yeah, maybe you can just keep it in the back burner. But if it continues to happen and the child has this journal, now a parent has to take that step of contacting the school. They have chronologically the events that occurred, who was involved, and exactly what happened. But at some point in time, a parent does have to step in and tell the child, listen, we need to keep you safe, and I want to protect you, and I love you, and that is my job.
Yeah, and it really is your job, you know, as a parent, because I can only imagine being a parent and my kid is being bullied, and, you know, it's gotten so bad now, especially if this is the YouTube age and Twitter and Facebook. There's so many social networks where, you know, it's become a point where cyberbullying is a bigger problem.
Well, and we didn't have that when you and I were kids. So that is another platform which children can use to bully other children, and it's very anonymous. So it's even much more difficult, and kids start passing things on. And I talk about cyberbullying in schools and really warn children not to put anything up there on the internet that they can't face and take responsibility for. So many times they put pictures up there, they text different kinds of messages that other people can pick up on, and then they start sharing it with everybody. So children have to be very aware of their responsibility too on the internet. And parents have to be also educated about what's happening on the internet in order to watch out what their children are doing on the home computer or what they're involved with on the internet.
Yeah, for sure. Now let's just talk about from a kid's perspective. You're a kid. And you know, you remember how it was to be in like middle school, high school, and I don't care who you are. If you're a kid and you're out there and you're listening right now, you know you want to be accepted. That's just kind of what the deal is. So you're a kid and, you know, you see someone getting bullied. You know it's wrong. You know it's wrong. You feel it's wrong. But, you know, what do? You're a kid. You're trying to fit in. Yeah, what do you do?
Well, I tell students that if you're part of a group that is picking on somebody or targeting someone, you're just as bad as the bully. My goal as Joe the Biker when I perform in schools, and I'm hoping to come down to the Miami area this year because I'm now in Florida.
Awesome.
My goal is to convey a sense of community in the school where every student, and every adult, including the teachers and the staff people in the kitchen and administrators, all feel that they are part of this one very special community. And it is their job in that community to respect and protect each member of that community. Therefore, it becomes incumbent upon a student. And I talk about that using that Yubbie name. I use that as an acronym in this classroom. And the I stands for intervene. I do skits about intervening. I try to help students empathize because I was picked on and by a group and nobody did anything. I try to make them empathize with the emotions around when you're being targeted and nobody is there helping you, and there are onlookers doing nothing, how terrible of a feeling, how lonely that feeling is, and that no one should experience that. So I try to build a sense of empathy so they can appreciate the pain that person who is being targeted, so they can have the courage and be a number one. One person can make a difference. To stand up and say, you know, it's not important for me to have friends as important as it is for me to protect those people in my community.
Absolutely. Let's speak to the bullies out there, the people who are the ones who are doing the bullying. Do you want to give them a little bit of advice, Joe?
Bullies have to understand why they're doing what they're doing. And I have fostered over 100 inner city children in 14 years. And I know that children come from homes that have problems or homes that have issues. I tell the students that if you are a bully, you can come to school and talk to counselors and teachers and get help. If something's happening in your life that's causing you to come here and act that way, you really need to talk to somebody and try to get some help, because you're having an impact on other people in your community.
Yeah, for sure. Let me ask you this, Joe, because a lot of focus is being put on anti-bullying programs now, because, I mean, we've lost so many kids to bullying, and it's become just kind of an epidemic. I mean, you hear, seems every month or so, about a kid who kills himself or because of bullying. But the anti-bullying programs that are out there don't seem to be doing much work.
Well, most of the bullying programs that exist today are character building exercises for students. And the reason why all the programs on this planet will never work to stop bullying is because we cannot stop the development of a bully.
Right.
Right? Because there are children that will constantly, there are parents that have children, parents that have issues in their life that neglect their children, parents that use inappropriate discipline. That's another reason somebody becomes a bully. We have all types of issues why parents develop a bully. So until we change and educate parents to become good, nurturing individuals, we can't stop the development of a bully. So the effectiveness of the bullying programs really are aimed at giving children the tools to be able to manage it if they're exposed to it, because we know we can't eliminate it.
Do you think every school should have an anti-bullying program?
I believe they should have rules and policies where if there are reports of bullying, they're taken seriously, that parents are contacted and the school tries to work it out. I really am a strong advocate for programs that build healthy character, healthy self-esteem, and healthy self-confidence, because those are the critical things, critical elements in a child that gives them the ability to walk away from bullying if they are exposed to it.
Absolutely. Joe Wojcik, who developed the Say No to Bullying Today program, has been on the show with us today. Thank you so much for being with us, Joe, and talking to us about bullying. We appreciate it so much. Thank you. And
thank you for having me on your show. And just let your audience know that I do offer a free Parent's Guide to Bullying at my site, www.joethebiker.com.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Have a great day, Africa.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.